It's a big event today, Jenna. We've got the man, the myth, the legend joining us, the director of the Cincinnati Zoo, Thane Maynard, a man who needs no introduction. But we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be here.
You're nice to have me. I know I was saying that you guys have a lot of listeners. I hear about the Tales podcast. I guess it's a podcast, right?
Yeah, we're thankful to all of our loyal listeners out there, and happy to have you on. This is your third appearance. Mm-hmm. You stopped by for our episode that was live for the people coming to the zoo for our 100th episode. And today we're celebrating 150 years of the zoo being around.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah, that is crazy. And I'm sure everyone knows there have been changes from day one, tons and tons of changes. But even in the last 10 years, I've seen a ton of changes. So we hope to hear a little bit from you about what's going on, anything from the past that, you think was a fun story you'd like to share today. But I believe this episode should be coming out right on the anniversary. So September 18th is the anniversary, and it should be coming out that day. Do you know if there are any specific plans for the zoo, on grounds or anything for that day?
Sure. Well, I'm sure we'll celebrate at the gate and everything else. As you guys know, here at the zoo, we've been celebrating all year long. Mm-hmm. We've had pins that people trade, and people are groupies, boy. I had to get over here quickly, so I took off my lanyard. People want to stop and want to trade. And obviously, tons of special events we're celebrating here through the whole year. And part of what we're celebrating is a lot of other new things that are coming this year, thank goodness. What might be the slowest exhibit ever built, the former bear line, is going to be Bear Ridge. And
great things take time.
Sea otters. There are all sorts of pieces, and evidently one of them was when the zoo was rebuilt. The first modern outdoor zoo in America was in the 30s. And it was built out of concrete. That's how we had outdoor bears, outdoor big cats, outdoor, the Veld, Monkey Island with no bars that had not been done in America. But they built it out of concrete. That must be what they built the Parthenon out of, because you can't move it. And so that's part of what took so long. And then also sea otters, first time in our history to bring sea otters. So those kinds of accomplishments sound easy, but it's more complex than it used to be. Talking about changes in the zoo over 150 years. I came about 50 years ago, and back then it was a lot of, okay, here's some animals, let's just throw some food over the fence, and I'll see you tomorrow. And they clean some poop and call it good. Not recognizing, depending on which species, they need lots of specific, either food, stimulation, and more to emulate the way they would live in the wild. But what the heck, sea otters, that'll be fun.
Oh my gosh, they're on my bucket list. If I were going to switch departments, I would want to work with sea otters for sure.
You can't leave here, Jen.
I'm not leaving, but that's one of those that's tempting.
The thing that's neat is, when you see the exhibit, some people might say, oh yeah, that's where the polar bears used to be. While that's true, this is much more complex. Mm-hmm. That's one reason it took so long. It has saltwater, refrigerated saltwater, which to do it correctly is complex to keep and balance, and yet it's a great setup.
I heard you got to change all the plumbing and everything so that it can handle salt water. Yeah, so it's been a big project.
It has been. Modern zoo exhibits are very complex. I mean, you've been here long enough. Remember, we used to have a barn down on Wildlife Canyon, and some of them you were lucky if it had electricity. Much less you just run a hose from somewhere else, right? And that's how barns, if you have a farm, what's a barn got? It's got a light bulb in a bucket.
Definitely,
and these days we just built, a $50 million elephant barn that has everything. But that's good. It's better for the care of everybody involved. So sea otters will learn a lot, but they'll be fun. They're active. People have otters. In fact, I had a group today down on Saimang Point, and the new Chinese small-clawed otters came out with their pups. And you talk about a showstopper.
Oh, man.
And I was down there. There was apparently nobody around. The second a whisper went out that the pups were out, bam, 100 people just came out of nowhere, and they were on them. And so that's a lot of fun.
They're they look like caricatures of the parents. They're kind of already as big as the parents, but their heads look a little bit disproportionate.
Proportion's a little off.
Yeah, like cartoon characters.
And they follow their mom around, right on her tail. Yeah, they come, the whole group, four pups and the parents. Yeah, but
so
it's exciting.
What do you think is one of the biggest differences as far as the community or the public goes, because we have a huge following. We social media helps, but the zoo has always had like a lot of support from the community, right? Do you think there's much of a difference between 20 years ago and today?
I do, and I think there are a ton of reasons. I often say Cincinnati's a zoo town. Green Bay, Wisconsin is a football town. Everybody knows Cincinnati's a zoo town. And every town's not that way. Everybody has a zoo, but this town loves this zoo. Because I've been here so long, people often will ask, what are you proudest of? Because you built the elephant building, or you had Fiona. My honest answer is, even though I'm here for the animals, it's that I can't go to the grocery store, I can't go to the gas station, from Cleves to Terrace Park without somebody stopping me and saying, man, that zoo is important to my family. My kids went to zoo camp, my daughter became a veterinarian because of the zoo. All this story that we're really an important part of this community is valuable, because that's what we are with Cincinnati Zoo. And that's the biggest thing we bring to the community, is really having them, as we say, we're here to inspire people with wildlife every day.
What do you think it is different, though? Like you said, other zoos or other cities have zoos, but I wonder why, that's not, I don't expect you to have an answer to that, but I do wonder what we've done or what it is about it that...
I think in some ways it's a Cincinnati thing. Every town has a zoo, and they fund themselves in different ways. Some, like the National Zoo, St. Louis Zoo, are completely made out of tax money, which is a good thing, but they don't need to hustle. They don't need to have corporate sponsorships and events, and they're like, honey, the bills are paid.
Yeah.
So that's a different set of selective pressure. They can have, giant research programs, all sorts of things, but they're not trying to say, how do we either drive membership, attendance, love for the zoo. I think that's a piece. I do think 2 or 3 generations of massive zoo camps. For instance, when I started, it was right place at the right time. The zoo was building its the whole world's first ever education center at a zoo. What we now call Treetops. Procter & Gamble built that for the zoo, 5 classrooms. Nobody ever thought of it, so much so that I walked in and said, I hear you're building a center, do you need anyone? They're like, maybe somebody will need to run a program. And as you know, today there'll be 300 qualified, educated kids applying for that job. So that's part of the upswelling. But I think in Cincinnati, we're like Pete Rose, head first slide. We are a Charlie Hustle town. So we're out there all the time, social media pitching, getting people to fall in love with their animals. I go to towns where they don't even name their animals. They're like, nuh-uh. And they don't get any animals out. They don't have any special tours. They don't have any shows. If you even say the word, oh yeah, we have a bird show. Like, what? Don't say the word. I'm like, people love those. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. So I think we are very vibrant. I recently visited a couple of zoos, had plenty of strengths, but I would say they were not very vibrant. They didn't have zoo teens out and wild encounters out showing people owls and snakes and alligators. So everybody has a different style, and that's more our style, but I think it makes families really, really fall in love with the zoo.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I can speak firsthand, the educational impact of it, right? I came to zoo camps when I was a kid.
There it is.
I was a zoo teen growing up, and that stuff lasts forever, and it builds within a family. My nieces and nephews all come now,
Yeah.
It definitely sticks, and generation after generation it builds upon itself. Yeah.
And there's pluses and minuses. Our zoo receives far less tax support than most. Less than any zoo in Ohio, certainly less than any other top 10 zoo in America. But the selective pressure is, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to get out there, and we're going to get companies involved and private foundations and families involved. So less tax money, but more private support. So, you got to work it out.
And then I guess that's also bringing in more people rather than the government or, taxes. It's kind of spreading the word of the zoo, and the people or companies that are donating, I guess, would also spread their love if they make the donation and like it.
I would say this. We have a lot of people visit from other zoos. That's always an honor because, your peers are here. You want to show off. And when they're here and later when they're leaving, I'll either hear from them or later after they're gone, they'll write back. And their basic message is, man, you are an overachieving zoo. Pulling this off on 67 acres in a bad weather, non-tourist town, right?
That's landlocked,
and it's like, we do an awful lot for that. We do. We play at a very high level on many, many things. And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty special. I'm curious to know, obviously being director is a big job, right? You've got a lot of stuff going on. What does like a normal day for you look like? What's your day today? Are you getting around out in the park at all? Are you kind of stuck at the computer all day? What's it look like for you?
Well, like all of us that work at zoos, there's a lot of different hats you wear. But I would say certainly every day I get around the zoo at least once. I'll bother keepers or trade pins with people visiting, whomever it might be. And partly to see what's going on and how it's going. In a world where you can take pictures and then text the maintenance department and say, why is this ugly barrier up, is a bother to people. But the great thing is we have Tony James, and you know what he says? I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that guy, right? He doesn't explain why it's there. He's like, got it. So, yeah, everybody does that, trying to keep an eye on things. So my day, a lot of the day is spent with either board members or donors. I was late because I had to be at a luncheon downtown, that kind of thing you do. And, of course, like everywhere, we have a lot of meetings. There are people, like if you know anyone that works at Proctor, they're very process-oriented. You know what they want to have is another meeting to follow that meeting, prepare for the next meeting. And that's why I couldn't make it at Proctor. Because that's too much process for me. So we have a good blend. We have a very much can-do, let's go style. If you don't think so, walk through the zoo and look at our gardens. Because any garden that we planted, Steve Foltz and his team don't say, well, you know what? If that was a normal lady's house, they'd put like 4 flowers. We put 4,000 flowers in a bed. You think there couldn't be more flowers in there, or more other plants, elephant ears, whatever. I mean, they overload it. So some of our success is in that spirit of sort of, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. We're just going to go. And so that's pretty cool.
I know that your favorite animal is the American alligator.
That's right. We have a new baby cruncher.
Oh, yes.
The littlest one ever, 5 months old. Honestly, it's only like this big.
Oh my gosh, like a foot long.
Yeah.
You love the alligators.
Yeah.
But if there was one habitat that you could bring in any species that's never been here before, what would it be?
Gosh. That's amazing. So often people's go-to is pandas because they're so popular. But it's very complex to do that. There's the expense, and you have to negotiate with the Chinese, and it's $1 million plus per animal per year. And though they are iconic because they're black and white, crazy looking, they're sometimes a little boring.
Yeah.
Either sleeping or just standing there with a piece of bamboo in their mouth. So I don't know that it would be that. Though nobody'd say no to pandas if you say you had a sponsor and you did it. Well, I know this, if we could wave a magic wand, we'd have twice as much land.
Okay.
So, for instance, in our Africa exhibit, we've got the big open mixed species. Man, make that thing 3 times the size. That kind of thing for Vista.
Yeah.
We've been lucky with these new exhibits like Africa and Elephant Trek to have vistas where when you're looking at that mixed species, you're like, man, that's a good looking exhibit.
Yeah. Same
Same thing at elephants, like, wow, that's looking good. Because the zoo's been here a long, long time, so it's very tight.
Yeah.
But moving the cars out helped. All right, let's see what other species.
Lincoln is always telling me what animals we need to have. I had a list going for a while. I was like,
Oh.
I'll tell Thane. I'll
What's
let my
his idea?
bosses know. And I can't recall a ton of them right now, but one is definitely a pangolin,
Oh, wow.
platypus,
Oh, wow.
and there were a few others that I can't think of right now, but
Yeah.
I'll send you the list sometime of what he wishes we had.
In North America, the only zoo that has a platypus is San Diego. And they're smaller than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw one out there. Brookfield Zoo in Chicago used to have pangolins. I don't know if they still do.
I was saying, are there? I don't know if there are.
They're
any zoos
super.
with
It was
pangolins
controversial.
anymore.
They brought one in out of the wild. and
Okay.
Their feeling was they brought a pair. They could take care of it. The mix-up, of course, is they're just very endangered from
Yeah.
trafficking. Yeah, but those would both be cool. What other big animals?
I will say, talking about the pandas, how you mentioned like they're such a crowd pleaser. I was shocked. I was out in San Diego a year ago last summer, and obviously we're out there. I was like, I got to see a platypus. When am I ever going to get a chance to do this? So we go to see it. There's a line way out the door to see this platypus. I was proud. I was like, this is awesome. I'm glad I'm not the only one getting excited to see a platypus.
Yeah.
They were a crowd pleaser, I'm telling you.
Now, you mentioned something we haven't had before, but I would say this of something we have had before, but I want to bring back. when we did our big More Home to Roam campaign, everybody got more room. So the elephants didn't have enough room, so we moved them. And then the giraffes are going to move up there, and we'll have more room for them up where the elephants were. Similarly, where the sea lions were, there wasn't enough room for a modern sea lion exhibit, so we put penguins, which are doing great. Where the polar bears were, there wasn't enough room, so we're going to put the sea otters. So I think a big dream down the way is a great big marine exhibit with walk-through under tunnels, sea lions, and polar bears. Separate, but adjacent.
Yes, yeah.
I think those would be great. Yeah.
It's tough with the harsh weather animals, I know,
Yeah.
to do right by them. So the polar bears, you have to make sure you have the space and you can provide them with the cold water and everything
Yeah.
they need. But
Yeah.
polar bears are amazing.
They're so charismatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing animals. For sure. What's yours, Jenna? What animal would you try and bring in?
I don't know. I actually really like. This is another one on Lincoln's list. Is Tasmanian devils. We saw them at
We had
Columbus
those years
recently.
ago, yeah.
They are so fun. I would totally want to work with Tasmanian devils. I don't know. Maybe white rhinos. I think that would be awesome too.
Yeah. There's threat of that. We may do that.
Yeah, that would be
Mark,
cool.
how about you?
So this is bringing back an animal we've had in the past, similar to you mentioned, but I'm a big cat person. I
Yeah.
love cats. Amur leopards are
Oh, yeah.
always been
Yeah.
one of my favorites. They're so beautiful.
I was pushing for that where the white lions used to be.
Oh,
And we're
yeah.
going to put Mexican wolves in there. And where we came down on that is the Mexican wolves, you don't have to put a net over it.
Oh, yeah.
And with the leopards you do. And the other mix-up, of course, is most of the cats, including leopards, are solitary. So if you actually go to zoos and look at leopard exhibits, you either say, oh, there's the leopard sleeping.
Or there's no leopard.
Or, I don't know where the darn thing is, right? Because, I mean, unless it's completely a mowed lawn, they can hide anywhere.
Right.
So that's a tough thing with
Yeah.
cats. But they are a cool animal.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of potential changes coming down the line in the future.
Yeah.
Would you talk a little bit about, there's 150 years at the zoo, but we're ever changing, right?
Yeah.
Will you talk about some of the changes that are coming down the line in the
Sure.
next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Yeah.
Sure. I will say this. Two things surprise me a great deal as time passes. One, as a function of inflation, how much it costs to build these things. You're like, what in the world? That's one. And it's more at the zoo than say even at your house. I know if you build a house, you think that's a lot of money, but the zoo has to be built for 2 million visitors a year and to keep the gorillas in. So
Right.
it's more substantial. So that, and the other, as I say, is change is glacial. God, it takes forever to build these things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm like, why can't we do this better? But things people can expect in the next few years, which are already funded, which is great, is the Bear Ridge, as I mentioned, and the Sea Otters are opening this fall.
That'd be so exciting.
Then next fall, September a year from now, the Mexican wolves will be done. They'll be on the main loop where the white lions and white tigers used to be.
Will that be connected, or will the current Mexican wolf habitat be empty at that point?
We may keep something in there in the short run, but eventually it'll become something else. But yeah, since it exists, we could put somebody else up in there.
So the old white lion habitat is just a better fit for
Yeah,
them.
and it's on the
current
main
one?
loop, and people
Okay.
can.
Oh
Part
yeah,
of
they
North
are kind
America.
of hidden back there.
Yeah, and it's a neat story. Thanks to Kim Scott, we play a big leading role with them, so it's good to celebrate that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's in 26. Then in 27, by then the old elephant yard will be enlarged up right by the main entrance, and giraffes will move up there. So when people walk in, instead of seeing 4 giraffes down below, there'll be 12 giraffes. And you'll see them, even if it's a big crowd, they'll be sticking up, and you'll see them from the main entry plaza.
See their big
Yeah.
heads and necks sticking
So
up.
that's one.
Talking about projects and things being tricky at the zoo, that might be one of them, because the elephant house, what we call the old elephant house, is stained. So it's on the
Yeah.
the National
Oh, yeah.
Historical Registry, right?
Yeah.
So we're retrofitting this.
That's right.
So that'll make it trickier. It's not like where you just build a new house on open land. Like, we're going to make a elephant proof barn into a giraffe friendly barn. So I'm interested to see how this timeline goes for that.
That is a funny thing because, to me, a simple thing would be, oh, for gosh sakes, let's just open up the yard and put some giraffes up there. The building's plenty big enough. But then one thing leads to the next, so it takes a while and millions of dollars.
Yes,
It's crazy.
yeah.
But that's for 27. Then, hopefully, by doing that and moving them out from down below, we can reconfigure down below in the Africa area where giraffes were And the hope is down there there'll be room for rhinos, and move the bongos down there. So some of the veldt goes there. And then eventually, to say 2029 is too optimistic. But take that biggest space left in the middle of the zoo, which is the veldt. And the veldt has served long and well. It was the first outdoor, barless, big open area in zoos from 1932. But 90 years is a long time for an exhibit.
Yeah.
If you don't think so, go in the second floor of that barn, right?
Yeah.
And perhaps in there is where we could put sea lions and polar bears. Now, there's a lot of steps between here and there, but those are ideas. Yeah.
Ever changing. There's
I'm
always
telling
something going on around here.
Which is fun. It gives you something to be excited about every year, right?
Yeah.
Like that's.
You know, this year, since it's the 150th, thinking about this history, reading some of it, it is remarkable looking back because, on one hand, when I started, the zoo was, had to be very frugal. The budget was very small, and yet we ran the same zoo and so many animals, a lot less employees. And yet, looking back even before 100 years before that, when Andrew Erkenbacher and those guys built this zoo, it was something. I mean, they built, there's still two buildings from then, the Pastor Pigeon Memorial Pagoda and the Reptile House, but the other buildings were clapboard and wood, but very elaborate, man. I mean, this thing called the clubhouse. People had weddings, debutante parties,
Wow.
black tie events, looking out over Swan Lake. There was a big amphitheater, whatever you call that, where there was no electricity to help amplify the sound. And that, of course, the Cincinnati Opera started here. So there were all these grand days back when the zoo's budget was about a nickel. I don't know how it happened.
That's amazing.
And then that phase passed, and it was the big heyday of the 30s when all these outdoor, first barless, bears, cats, all those things. They brought in Carl Hagenbeck, the world's greatest zoo designer from Germany in the 1930s to design the zoos. That was a big leap forward. And then again, here in the 70s, the zoo was not a very flush operation, but we built a very good and the world's first insectarium that holds up today, 48 years later. Outdoor Gorilla Center, world's first. People thought they would immediately climb out of there. Now there's that one and many others at other places that are very good. So all of those were kind of leaps forward, yeah.
And everything's getting better. I feel like every year we figure something out, whether it's training or habitat changes or how we run things. We're always learning and growing, which I think is really important because I've said this before in this podcast, but like 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to be a zookeeper in the way that things were done. It wasn't all operant conditioning and positive reinforcement.
It was cowboy days.
Yeah, it would have been. I wouldn't want to catch a markhor. I wouldn't want to. It's not my style. But I'm glad that we're always doing better and doing more.
And you probably have celebrated on your show. The big change is the future is female.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I started here, all the keepers were farm boys. Everyone was like Cecil Jackson. They knew animals. That's it.
Yeah.
And now it's majority female, majority with degrees, and like you said, great husbandry. When I think of the things you train, like your hippos, to let you go in with an angle grinder just to trim their teeth, think how much trust they must have. Just imagine at home trying that with your dog.
Right.
If you brought your electric toothbrush toward your dog, they're like,
It's very odd because I'll go to the vet with my dog and I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, I can train hippos to allow blood draws or me to grind their teeth, and I can't train my dog to walk well on a leash. Like, what is There's something about zoo animals. They make my life easier than my dog does, but...
Yeah.
I kind of have a wild question for you. I don't know if you've ever been asked this or if you have an answer to it, but if you were going to be an animal keeper and take care of, you can either pick a department or a certain species, which one would you want to care for?
So here I'm on
Clean up
dangerous
after.
water since all the keepers listen. So I don't want to imply that some areas
I don't know what the keepers listen.
don't work as hard as others, right? So what would I like to take care of?
Or do you have one of those things that you wouldn't want to? Like, I love our pelicans and I think penguins are cool, but I don't love working with fish, and that would be my hang up with the sea otters.
Yeah, you'd smell like fish.
You're like,
Yeah.
you go home in your hands, it doesn't matter what you do, they
It
still smell
sticks
like
to
fish.
it. Yeah, it sticks to you for sure.
So if you can't think of one you'd want to, is there anything you wouldn't want to, or?
Well, you know what's funny about that? Probably just because feels like sort of being on a ranch is I'd like to take care of hoof stock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun.
You know, and that's just the American myth of, you know, take care of these hoofed animals. But I remember those cowboy days on the radio. Need 3 guys to come down and chase the zebra until it gets in the horse trailer. And even I thought there must be an easier way to get that thing in a horse trailer. And the guys would be banged up and the zebra would be banged up and they'd say, yeah, we showed him. And now, of course,
now we'd go to urgent care and have all the
it would be
tests
reported.
done.
Oh, yeah. But now, of course, you feed them in the trailer for a couple days and just close the door.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I was say when we recently did a rhino move, the rhino just walked right in the crate.
Mm-hmm.
Strolled right on in.
So that piece is better. A lot's improved. I mean, when I started, believe it or not, the zoo didn't have a vet. It was like a farm. If an animal didn't get up or an animal didn't eat, we'd call a vet. Mm-hmm. And, of course, animals are easier to get then. And this sounds crazy, and anybody who's listening who's probably younger than me would think, what? But yeah, all up through the 80s, zoo directors would call animal dealers and say, okay, I need 2 gibbons, and I need you to send somebody to Borneo, catch them, put them in a box, and send them here on a boat, make sure they're here by Memorial Day.
That's wild.
Right, and for 100 reasons, you could not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Zoonotic diseases, international agreements on endangered species, no way. But that's just what they did.
A lot of good reasons.
Yeah.
Just caught them.
Yeah.
But for 50 different reasons, there's a tremendous amount of care, including vet care, nutritional care. We used to be pretty non-selective. You know, we just, I don't know, if it looked like it'd eat hay, we threw hay over the fence.
Right, and then you notice with some animals that doesn't matter, and other animals it's a huge deal, and they won't make it without the right food.
Yeah.
I also think maybe something you might have seen a huge change in, or not necessarily huge change, but just more and more growth is the conservation effort the zoo puts in, and a lot of zoos. But do you have any like conservation projects that come to mind that you've been most proud of, or of the zoo working on, or?
It's been very great to see the growth of that over time. We've been involved with conservation, supportive of conservation, all the way back over 100 years since we lost Martha the passenger pigeon. But today, in earnest, we are not just sending a check, but also really involved in conservation programs from the Congo to Kenya. Of course, Sumatran rhino with Terry Roth and her team from Crew. Not a lot of people believe Sumatran rhinos can make it, but we haven't given up yet, and we're hoping. The ones that have all been born in that center have all been descendants of the ones we sent there, so there's still hope. Others where we play a role, as you said, like with Mexican wolves. And these are all cooperative programs. It's not like, okay, Cincinnati Zoo's here, we've saved the Mexican wolf. It's with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's with local ranchers. I mean, it takes a village to get people to be willing to live near wolves. But it's neat that our zoo plays a real integral role in that. It's been fun to see out of the AZA, and I'm not a capital A AZA guy, I'm more of a capital Z zoo guy, but their SAFE program, Saving Species from Extinction, has added more and more substance year by year. And so our team leads the SAFE lions and play a big role in SAFE monarch butterflies, 2 or 3 others where tons of zoos are involved, playing a real high impact. And the thing that's great about that is zoos have a big reach. Our zoo's the biggest draw in town. Nationwide, zoos draw more than all the professional sports. I mean, we reach everybody that goes to the grocery store goes to a zoo. So that's a neat thing.
That's a good point. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned some of these conservation programs we've been a part of. Something that our zoo is really proud of. Through a lot of those programs, you've gotten to travel a lot of really cool places in the world. You're a bit of a world traveler. Do you have a favorite place that you've been? I've always wondered this, because you've seen everything, I feel like, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm a soft touch for Africa. You've been to Africa. I know it is. If you get to go on safari in East Africa or Southern Africa, it's great in every single way. It's amazing. There's still these open plains and these big herds. It's really amazing. I can't think of anywhere else there would be that. But I will say the craziest trip I ever went on was to the Congo, where the zoo's been involved with conservation since 1999. Because you say, I want to go to the wildest place in the world, and you say, I want to go to this place no one else gets to go. Well, that looks like this. It's hotter than blue blazes. You get out of a truck in the middle of nowhere, and there's no road, there's no nothing. And you're carrying whatever you have, and you walk like all day. like 14 miles through the tropics, through water, the impenetrable swamp, to get to a
Mosquitoes.
camp, and all it is a pup tent in the mud. And you're there for a few days, and there's folks that live out there, and they're working, with with the chimpanzees and the gorillas. And then after a few days, you hike another full day, all day, to another research camp. And among the things you can't believe is that somebody lives out there all the time. Because for most of us, myself included, I mean, this is a very virulent part of the world. It is hot. Every possible virus is just coming out of this place. I mean, I would probably just die in the mud if I stayed there. And yet at these camps, which are largely people by, local guys that are helping, in each one these happen to be Europeans, these European expats who live there. I mean, there's no electricity, there's no nothing. And from what I sensed, they just, drink black coffee and smoke cigarettes. They're all really skinny. And, I thought, man, they really want to get out of the house. But seeing that and how it's done, you might remember way back we've supported Imbelli Bay. That's a research area. This magnificent Abai is like an open grassland swamp. So there's this tower, and you look out and you see elephants, gorillas. These are coming out of the forest and just into the bongo. You're like, man, I can't believe it. And so one of the days walking back to the little camp, I say to Dave Morgan, the biologist we work with a lot, I say, Dave, the zoo's supported this a long time. I don't see a lot of researchers. I thought this was a research site. He said, well, it's been hard to get researchers since last fall. I said, well, what happened? He said, the veteran, the woman who'd been doing it for many years was stomped to death by an elephant.
Oh, no.
I'm like, where did that happen? He said, yeah, right about here on the trail.
Oh my
I mean, these are tough places.
Wow,
Tough places.
And then if you do get hurt, you have to hike back to
the hospital.
It's crazy, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's a lot. But
so there's a little bit of, you got to be careful what you wish for.
Definitely. As much as I respect and love that for them, I just like the comfort of my bed too much. I don't know if I could sleep out there all the time. Oh, man.
I know that we have trivia for you in just a minute, but I wanted to ask you one question. Obviously, we all have our own reasons or our own answers, but I'd be interested to hear if somebody came to you and they were like, I don't like zoos, put all the animals back in the wild, we shouldn't have zoos.
Sure.
Like, what is your answer? How do you respond to that sort of statement or question?
Whether they're here in Cincinnati or even if I meet them somewhere else, say on an airplane, I invite them to the zoo, like legit invite them. I give them my card, and I said, you come visit, and come visit for an hour, and we're not going to bark at each other, but I promise you, zoos do a lot more than you think they do. Because people have a myth. It's weird. I don't know what the term would be, but they remember something from way in the past that they never saw. They saw it in a book, right? This weird thing with this weird poor monkey in a cage, and right? But they didn't see that, because that's literally 100 years ago. And do they know we're doing conservation work all over the world, leading the world in research? I mean, we've got 2 of 3 elephants that have ever gotten that vaccine.
Yes, that's so cool.
All the sustainability, all the community, all the bot garden. And in almost all cases, if people come and see the stuff we're doing, they're like, man alive, I did not know that. So some of it's us spreading the story farther, like with your show, frankly. So people hear it and say, all right, let's go see what they are doing. But always it's good to invite people over, whether you're trying to raise money or you're trying to change hearts and minds. People generally, if you invite them to do something, they'll come do it.
That's smart. I've never thought about that. Yeah. I feel like sometimes...
And for sure don't fight with them.
Right.
Don't say, lady, you don't know what you're talking about. That is a no-go right there.
For sure. I also don't think... sometimes people don't understand how hard the wild can be and what zoos are doing actually to help save animals directly in the wild. From our hippo tours, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but we donate 50% from every tour done at the zoo, not just hippo tours, to conservation. And there was a year when there was such a severe drought that hippos were starving to death and they weren't finding food. Like the grass, there wasn't any grass. So we literally sent money to help pay to feed wild hippos. Like, I just don't think, there's, that's a huge conversation, a huge topic, but I just, it's hard to say, put them all back in the wild when people don't always understand what the wild really is.
Even Jane Goodall, who is very sensitive to criticism about animal rights, says good zoos do a good job and that life is hard. For instance, with chimps, that she's the expert it's a much harder world than it was 60 plus years ago when she first went to Gombe. So yeah, good zoos do a good job.
Definitely.
We're lucky to be part of one here.
There you go.
Yeah, I do have some zoo history trivia.
I'm ready.
If you're down for it. Only way we know to celebrate the 150th
That's
anniversary is some trivia. So, I got a bunch of questions here for you. First one I've got up. We touched on this a little bit, but one of the really exciting things we've got coming up is the opening of Bear Ridge, right?
That's right.
It's about to be renovated. It's going to be beautiful. Black bears, sea otters, all this stuff. When did those original bear grottos open?
1937.
I couldn't even finish the question. 1937. You got it on the money. And this was the most
That is
amazing
wild
part.
to me.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, it's like the 60s, 70s, maybe, but 1937.
90
Well,
years ago.
The reason that I know is there was an amazing woman from the East Side named Lily Ackerland Fleischman. And single-handedly, she changed this zoo and changed America's zoos. It was the Depression. People needed work. She got on the zoo board. We'd never had a female zoo board member. She pushed all the old guys out of the way. This is well documented. And she just said, we're building a great zoo. And she's the one that brought in Hagenbach. She's the one that funded all that.
I didn't know that.
And all these outdoor areas. I mean, no one had ever seen monkeys before, except behind bars. And they created Monkey Island and took down the bars. Now, over time, was that perfect, imperfect? But back then, I mean, man, compared to otherwise, they definitely looked like they were in jail.
Yeah. Wow. Also, this is a side topic, but do you have the world's best memory? You can remember so many stories and names, like, it's just incredible. I don't know
Yeah,
how
I'm
you
a
do
one-trick pony. The only thing I know is animal trivia at the Cincinnati Zoo.
You know,
Yeah.
human names.
Well, he's good
you know,
at it.
places.
Oh, man. 1937. One for one. Oh, I forgot to mention. One of the things I thought, which you mentioned earlier, is, you know, rising prices, inflation, all this kind of... It seems like this stuff gets more and more expensive every year. The Bear Grottos, the cost to build that entire exhibit was $104,000.
Wow.
A little bit
During
less
the
than Elephant
Depression, that
Trek.
was a lot of money. But still, yeah.
Slightly
Oh my
less than
gosh.
Elephant Trek.
That's amazing.
Wow.
All right, next one we got for you. What year did attendance reach 1 million visitors in Cincinnati Zoo history?
You asked me this recently.
What year did attendance reach 1 million?
You know, I always wonder, and the zoo's not the only player in this. A lot of times you'll hear figures. I heard a thing on the radio that said, it said the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York has 3 million visitors a year. In one building, I'm like, man, that's a lot of people every single day, right? So I would say there were made-up numbers up through the 90s. And then later we got barcodes and stuff. So if you wanted me to say it, I'm going to say 2009.
Okay, sorry. Yes, that's what I think. I guessed that the last time because I remember some big thing happening because that's the year I started here, and I thought that was the year we hit 1 million. But that's Thane's number, and the
yours?
barcode number. I thought it was 2009.
Okay.
But I was wrong last time. I think you asked me this.
It's actually earlier than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
According to our historical
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
they reached 1 million in 1984.
There you go.
84. But, you know, like you said,
There you
we're probably counting on a clicker back then.
Yeah.
Right?
I wonder if it's sustained around 1 million. Like,
I think it did for a
Yeah.
long time until we
Yeah.
had more access with parking. Yeah.
And do you know offhand what our number is right now? Like, you know,
1.9.
2023, 1.9.
wow.
Yeah.
Approaching 2 million.
Telling you,
That'll be the next benchmark to hit.
Yeah.
if it stays this hot, we won't make that.
I know, it's been
Summer's
brutal.
been brutal.
All right, next question I've got for you. What president visited Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden in 1903 and befriended the zoo's superintendent?
Teddy Roosevelt,
I'm not even gonna guess.
Teddy Roosevelt.
the only sitting president to ever visit the zoo.
Teddy Roosevelt, yeah, visited in 1903. And I was fascinated when I was reading this story because he befriended the zoo superintendent, Sol Stephen, at the time.
Yeah.
And he invited Sol's son, Joe, to stay out west for him with him for the summer.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Which is crazy, yeah. And then the zoo, to celebrate, they named 2 giraffes after his kids. Yeah.
There it is.
Kermit and Alice, I know. Crazy. I was surprised to see that too. The only sitting president to
about
ever visit the zoo.
1902, you got a kid named Kermit Roosevelt. It's a good thing he was rich. I mean, you got to admit, that's a funny name.
I was just
tough.
thinking like when there were
That's tough.
I think we had a Tawny Frogmouth named Kermit, but like Yeah, I didn't think about that being a human.
Kermit's
name.
his name.
Poor
Maybe
guy.
we just think of Kermit the Frog nowadays. That's all we can think of. Oh, that's funny. All right, another one you mentioned earlier while we were talking, but a huge landmark for the Cincinnati Zoo was opening the United States' first insect-oriented exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
We opened our World of the Insect in what year?
1978.
78. We're just milling through trivia.
memory.
I should have come up with something harder. I thought I had some good stuff. Yeah, in 1978 it opened, and that year it won an AZA Design Award for an exhibit of
And you got to admit, it's held up pretty darn well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It seems like we change the giraffe exhibit every other year.
Absolutely. And I always love the World of the Insect. I think it's such a cool
Yeah.
perspective. There's not many zoos that have something like that, and you know, I feel like it's a hidden gem. People will walk away from like the leaf cutter ant exhibit, and it's fascinating. Yeah, everyone enjoys it. All right, last question I've got for you. See if you know this one. This might be the toughest question yet. In what year did a little program on NPR called 90 Second Naturalist launch?
There you go. That I do know. 1987.
1987.
Yeah.
This is something I definitely wanted to ask you about. What was the thought for forming 90 Second? It's a program I've always enjoyed listening to. I always, even before I worked at the zoo, I always loved learning the little tidbits about animals and natural life. What was this genesis of it?
Well, thanks for that. I enjoy doing it. So in 1987, it started in August. In May, I happened to be up at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Back when people put up notices, it was just like with a magic marker, And there was a note that said where I was at the zoology department. The next day, E.O. Wilson from Harvard was going to speak. And I'm like, are you even kidding me?
He's a legend.
And the greatest biologist since Darwin. So back then, you could just go to get your ticket the next day. Nobody cared. So I stayed, sitting in this audience, standing room only. Everybody but me is a scientist. They've got lab coats, pocket protectors, the whole thing, and they're there. And a lot of them were disappointed because Wilson said, I'm not going to give a big scientific talk. I do that for a living. I'm in the narrative phase of my career. I'm going to explain why we need to take biodiversity and the protection of nature to the street. We need to quit just talking in journals that nobody but journal people read. There need to be daily radio shows. There need to be cartoon strips. There need to be, we need people to understand this. And I'm sitting in the back thinking, well, I'm not a scientist, but I can tell stories about animals. That's a great idea. So the name came from, there was a book at the time, a small book, little business tip book called The 1 Minute Manager. And that alliteration was sort of the pitch for the book. And I thought, well, the 90-second naturalist has a little alliteration.
Yeah.
And the one good thing about it was I realized even then, and it's twice as true now, people have a short attention span. People are listening to us because we're so compelling. In general, if you're driving in your car, if it goes on too long, it's like, yeah. So that was the impetus. So I will tell a story on myself, sort of embarrassingly. About once a decade, I'll come up with an idea, a book, a TV thing, something. And I'll say to my wife, this is it. This is the one. This is where I'm going to become the next David Attenborough. I mean, no, he's going to become the next David Attenborough, but yeah. So along the way in the 80s, I'm like, this is it. So rather than just do it, I made a couple of audition tapes, and I sent them to the only guy I knew that was kind of professional in broadcasting, a guy named Bob Costas, who used to do sports for ABC. His first wife was my wife's college roommate. And so I knew him, and he's a pro. He did it on TV forever, the Olympics, and he started on the radio. So I sent it to him, and he was very nice. And this is back when people sent mail, but paper mail. He said, hey, I've got a show that I do in New York called Bob Costas Now. Why don't you bring a couple of animals? You can be on the show. Then we'll go out to dinner. And I'm like, great. So I go and took like a hedgehog and an armadillo, and we do it. I remember there were two guests. The other guest was Amy Grant, the Christian singer, who's such a nice person. And this is forever ago. Like me, she's probably an old lady now. So we go to dinner, and he looks at me and he says, I listened to your tape. I think it'll work. I think, this really is it. This is it. And he says, you have to do one thing. And I thought he's going to say, you have to get an agent. You have to change the opening thing. I don't know what he's going to say. keep your day job. He said, you're not going to make any money. People will air it on public radio, but you're not going to make any money. And their truer words have never been said. The 37th anniversary, 38th anniversary is in 2 weeks of every day, almost 10,000 shows.
Wow,
But yeah, there hadn't been any cash flow.
Which is so unfortunate.
Which makes me only slightly broker than the people that work on public radio. The tragedy of that whole budget getting cut, and all, is those people hardly get paid anyway, because I have a little producer, not a little, I have a great producer, but they tend to stay just a little while because, they have to go off and get a real job. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun.
How do you've had to, you said 10,000 episodes, so you've done repeats, correct? Or how do you come up with?
I come up with shows every week, and I'll go down and record, usually
how do you
5 to 10.
remember all of them that you've done?
Well, your point's a good one. There's certainly some overlaps. I've probably done 100 on elephant trunks.
Okay.
I'm personally still not really buying this. There's hundreds and thousands of muscles in it. Because when you really listen to it, it's like there's 17 big muscles. They got all these other,
Yes, I've questioned that before,
Yeah,
too.
so that kind of thing. In terms of coming up with them, my metaphor is it's like training to run a marathon. If you are trained to run a marathon, you run a lot. You aren't like, oh man, I have to go run. You're like, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And so because of this, I'll just hear about things or think about things. I was taking somebody around the zoo today, and they were talking about the evolution of snakes and how early on they were hinged, but then they could disconnect. And I'm like, I never even thought of that.
That's an episode.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, and you can make that stories. That kind of thing.
Wow, so it's 7 days a week it airs?
It's in different towns.
Okay.
Here it's 3 times a day, 5 days a week.
Wow, 3 times a day, 5 days a week. That's amazing. So whenever you decide to retire, hopefully we don't want you to retire, but will you continue doing that? Or like...
I think I will for a while.
Okay.
It's a tricky balancing act. Because I don't make any money doing it, it's not like they say, well, got to get rid of that expensive. But also they might be like, we need to put something else on there. I have over the years had people that complain. They'll complain if they think I talk about poop too much, talk about sex too much. But these are animals. Those are the topics.
This is the animal kingdom. Yeah. This is the
sometimes they think I talk about evolution too much. One lady was my second harshest critic. Oh man, she used to write me. She was.
I was going to say, where do you hear these complaints from? They're
in
mailing?
the old days they were paper, and now they're on email.
Oh my gosh.
They'll send them. They track you down. Anyway, she was a retired biology professor, and she would write me these handwritten letters. She was an old person by then, in her 80s, handwritten, and would say, to the happy optimist, care of the Cincinnati Zoo. She wouldn't put my name. And I open it up, the first one, and it says, you are a public nuisance. And her point was, the world is falling apart, the forests are burning down, and you're saying, hey, isn't it cool they found a new, frog somewhere in New Guinea? And she's like, so at Christmas, she'd send a little card that looked cute, and I'd open it up and say, I'm still waiting to hear you get angry on the radio. Love, Marjorie, that kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
I do a April Fool's show every April Fool's that I make up stuff, usually a species that's slightly plausible. Every year, it fools experts. It never fools moms, kids, kindergarten teachers, but it's always like college professors. I will hear, you wait just a minute, I'm the world's expert on that group animal. There is no such thing. And I'll write back, hey, thanks for listening. Maybe when you're not in your car, here's a link. Maybe just listening. Because if you're not distracted and you're listening, you can tell it's a spoof.
That's funny.
But, but my biggest critics ever barely survived is one time I explained there are too many feral house cats because they kill songbirds.
Yeah.
This zoo is the center of cats. We have cat research. We're saving house cats. We spend $2 million a year on wild cats. Oh man.
Oh
man.
My gosh.
That's hilarious.
Took a lot to get out from under that one.
Okay, I was going to have one final question, but I thought of something else while you were talking. One more thing I want to ask you, because your life is so interesting. In the almost 50 years you've been here, what's like the coolest show or like wildest animal you've flown with? Because you guys used to take animals to wild places, or you've gotten to do cool shows. Like what's the top memory? Or
it was It was really fast and loose back then. Anything you could grab, literally, because we would go on Conan O'Brien for years, and it's on NBC and say, all right, someone grab a peacock and wrap it in a towel and stick it in a carrying case, and off we go. And of course, Jack Hanna style, it ends up getting loose in the studio and all that kind of thing. So those kinds of things happened, and you would have to keep a penguin in the bathtub in your hotel room.
Can you imagine
That's
that?
nuts.
Like,
That is nuts.
That is a story you can share. That is wild.
It was wild. Among the most hilarious ever, and you guys haven't been here this long, but man, back in the last century, the zoo was broke. And our director was a good animal man, built a good zoo, but he was thrifty. And he would say, you and your stupid publicity, I don't want to see any receipts for this. Don't spend any money. Oh, no. So Catherine Hilker and I, who founded our cat show, and this is a long time ago, so we'll say this is, 40 years ago. We take a full-grown cheetah and a half-grown tiger to New York City, and we're going to be on the Today Show. Now, the Bronx Zoo is humorless. They have never been media taking animals on TV and that kind of thing. But they wanted us to take care of our animals, so we were allowed to take them and leave the cheetah and the tiger there. They didn't have to stay in my sister-in-law's apartment, who was a law student, where Catherine Hilker and I slept on the floor, if you can imagine. We had no budget. Well, we also didn't have a budget for transport, so my sister-in-law rented a beat-up panel van, like beat up, drove us around town with the cats in the back. Her boyfriend at the time, who was really chasing her, who she's now been married to for 35 years, is allergic to cats. Oh, but he was trying to be impressed. So he came, and the whole time he's leaning out the window and sneezing. And, I mean, what a crazy time. We had to leave before dawn, go to the Bronx, get him, go do the show. And again, Catherine was so tired because, she's 94 years old now. So even then, she was tired. So we go to the Bronx Zoo, we drop off the animals, after the show. We're wandering all around, and she says, I'm just going to take a nap, and you guys come and get me after a while. And she just goes over to this old piece of grass, and just lays on the grass and falls asleep. I mean, it was just crazy. So, last part, my favorite show ever, and the first I ever did in New York, was way back in the 80s. There used to be here in town the national broadcast of a radio show called Kids America Radio. And it was before the internet. And what it was is on live TV, live radio, kids would call and stump the hosts. Mm. And I'm listening to the show and I'm like, I am getting on that show, man. Because they didn't have an animal segment. And of course, kids and animal segments is way better than questions about whatever. So I wasn't able to reach anybody. So I put a hedgehog in the pocket of my LL Bean parka. And I took it to New York City. And I'm going to WNYC, the home of, big public radio. And I get on the elevator and I go up.
Did you fly or drive?
Flew
with the hedgehog in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I put it on above where you sit. Anyway, I just go. And I say, I just think this is a perfect fit. And believe it or not, because it happens that I got there just before the show was going, I got on that night. And then from that grew a great segment was called Kids America Zoo. Wow. And kids would call in and try to stump me about animals. But again, it was so innocent because there wasn't any research. Today, I mean, anybody could stump anybody.
Oh,
you're just looking stuff
up. Just
up.
Google whatever, yeah.
So it'd be a brainy kid asking me. And of course, part of my shtick was to stall and be clumsy because I would often, a really smart kid asks, they want to know more about animals than I do, right? So you got to wiggle around it. But that was a great show. And I did that, for a couple of years.
That
Kids America
so
Radio.
Fun.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're, recording somewhere that we
I
can
know.
There's some old Conan tapes. I don't know if there's the radio show. But,
wow.
Yeah, that was fun. Those things are hard to do today. Those days kind of passed.
Yeah.
I think Jack was the last sort of hit maker in that. It's just harder to move animals around that way.
Well, yeah, I was thinking, what do you mean? Where did you put the tiger? How did you get the
Yeah,
tiger back?
in a rented van. In a rented panel van.
Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah. There'd be so many reasons that wouldn't happen that way. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Oh, well, this has been amazing, but I have one final question for you. What can I do? How can I be a better steward of the earth?
Yeah.
What advice do you have?
Well, here's my take. The problems that we face in the world require everybody to be involved. Because what's the answer? The answer isn't, did the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service save the day? The answer is in billions of people making billions of better decisions every day. All of us, right? Eat this rather than that, move this way rather than move that, So that's an important thing to remember, that all of us and everyone we know, step by step making better decisions is how it gets where it needs to get. And we all know there's times we do that a lot better. Our zoo does. Wow. Better than before we started our program with Mark Fisher, our engineer. We used to waste more water, more electricity, more natural gas than anywhere. And now we're the most efficient in the history of the zoo. Right? So you can do it if you want. But my genuine answer is people need to get outside. I think, at least as Americans, we've become very sedentary. We don't think of it that way, but like you get up, I got to check my laptop, I got to check my email, I got to check my, and you do, and this, and you stay busy with all that. When really, you should just go outside. Because sometimes I'll have people say, well, I'm waiting to go on safari until I've got enough money, or I'm going to go until I'm retired. That doesn't make any sense, because if you think back, the most fun you ever had when you think somewhere you went is when you were young and broke and it just worked out.
Right.
You're just like, I don't know exactly where we're going to stay. It's fine.
Yeah.
Right? And so the same way, you don't have to wait till you can go all the way to Costa Rica. You can go, there are such great parks in this town that are hidden gems. My wife and I, during COVID, remember that short period of time where nobody was really going anywhere? We went to every single park and went hiking. Tons I'd never heard of.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you're familiar with Caldwell Nature Preserve. I'm not even 100% sure what part of town that's in, but it's off of North Bend Road. It is bordered by North Bend on the south and the Mill Creek on the east. A man left, I'm going to say 180 acres, named Caldwell, years ago. And by now, the house has fallen down. But man, beech trees, pawpaw, groves, absolutely phenomenal. It's not fancy at all, but you just hike in and you're thinking, what in the world? And it is 1 mile from here.
I was going to say, I just went there in July for the first time. I was just wanted to go to a new park, and I had no idea it existed. And when I was driving there, I was like, I'm 100% lost. There's no way I'm going to come up to some preserve right now, because you feel like you're in almost an industrial part of town, and then it's just there. Yeah.
Wow. And there are those that are just terrific. French Park, which is very famous for being fancy with the big house and people have weddings, but that's 400 acres. So behind that is this great big creek and ravine and hiking. And the best part about them is that, honestly, they're within about 5 minutes of a lot of people's houses. Shawnee Lookout out on the west side is just terrific. It's a county park. You climb up, you look out, you see the whole Ohio Valley, the Great Miami Valley, the Oxbow. You think, man,
I need to check that out.
that's great.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's big. Yeah, it's big. And that's heartening. As fun as it is to go all the way on some big vacation, you're not going to do that very often, but just get outdoors. That helps.
Love
Awesome.
it. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Thane. You're always so
great.
fun to talk to. You have the best stories.
I know.
And 150 years. We're celebrating.
That's
Everyone
right.
listening. We thank everyone for listening to this episode and all of the others.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Everything you've done for our zoo to get to this 150 year. We've got you to thank for a lot of it. So.
Yeah. Well, we have
Thanks
fun
so
with
much.
it, that's for sure.
Yes. And all you listeners at home, thanks for tuning into another episode. We will talk to you soon.
Have a good one.